Remember we looked at the starter relay down here and that plug that should be 2 plugs, and up here with the coils, here's what it should look like. That's the bit that we've got down there, and even that's got a bit of corrosion inside of it, so that needs a bit of a clean out. And this is the bit that's missing from that one, and you can see the green tinge of the corrosion in there. That's the piece that we've got missing from that end. So it's obvious that they used a bit on these bikes, so it might even be possible to find one of them somewhere, cut it back here somewhere and joint it on to the wires that we've got on the loom. Although it doesn't matter too much because it's only just two rather large blades there. It's not a big problem, yeah. So I think as long as we seal the other socket properly, we'll be as good as out. But that certainly needs some contact cleaner in there to give that a better connection, help it run a bit smoother. So time to get these coils off out of the way, and then I think the rest of the loom we can drop out of the way as well, and see where we're at. Back in a minute. There's a point of poor design. That's the connection for the starter motor from the starter solenoid, and because it's right in front of the bike where all of the mess comes up, those nuts are completely corroded on there. I tried everything I can, and as you can see, it's ended up with the whole thing coming loose from inside the starter motor, which at worst is going to be a replacement starter motor, at best it's going to be a case of opening it up and see what I can repair. Well, this is just because of bad design. They put a rubber boot on there which is doing nothing but really catching all the water and all the mess. When you've got connections like these, if they're clean and they're loose and you can open them, get a load of copper grease in there, fasten them all up with that, and save yourself a big headache later. It looks like what I'm going to have to do now is actually cut that off and then take it off the end of the lead, and then get the starter motor out and take that apart to see if I can repair it, and if not, then it's a replacement starter motor. Because this bike, like a number of them these days, no kickstart, so you can't do anything other than use the starter motor. So let's get that apart now and see where we get to next. But the loom, apart from this bit, the loom's pretty much free of the bike now, and a couple of connections to take off the other side, and that's all the wiring off the bike. So let's push on. It's looking even more naked up here, look. Crazy. See you in a bit. Right, here's another handy point. Mr. Honda, when he designed this bike, really thought about this, because this is the bolt, this is the nut off the inside of that stem, and here's a 10mm spanner, and if you look at that, you can see the gap. That's not a 10mm nut, even though this spanner has seen some life. Even with that end on, which is obviously, well, you know, it isn't stretched. I mean, you can normally say that an older 10mm spanner, the jaws might actually stretch a little bit, so you might not get a quite a neat fit. But look at the gap. It's ridiculous. Now, to add to that, here is a 9mm socket. Right, there you are, 9mm. And that doesn't fit. So what size is that? And how are you supposed to get a tool on there to loosen it off? Which is the problem I had on the other side, and the only result I could get was to try and knock a socket on, a 9mm socket on, and it didn't work. So I've had to cut that bolt off now. So now I'm going to have to find another way of actually getting that loosened off, get that off there. I might just have to zip it with the grinder just to take that out of there, so we get the lead freed, and hopefully correct the problem when I put it back together. Don't worry, Mr. Honda, I can do some work for you. Right, bye for now. So that's that. We've got the electrics off the bike now, so it looks fairly naked there now. The only bits left are the bits that's hanging off the bars or actually fitted inside the engine. This lot here which goes directly into the engine. So that's them. So now it's a case of loosen all the bolts that are holding the engine in and lift the engine out. I think these crash bars and downpipes will have to come off, and that collector box which sits underneath there, yeah, they'll have to all come off. So let's get them done, see where we get to. Not be long before we have a naked frame ready for cleaning back, because you can see there's quite a bit of rust scabbing around, and you can make it look pretty on the outside, but when this is all bad, on this bike especially, most of this is going to be visible. So really I'm gonna have to give that a clean and a paint. I wouldn't normally go this far on something like this, but it was supposed to be just a winter hack, something to get on the road and run and get riding. But yeah, well, sometimes you have to change your plans a little bit, and when a bike falls off a trailer, it kind of forces your hand on that one, doesn't it? So let's get on, get this stripped down and see what we're left with. This is probably another reason why these are leaking. I've just come to these heads, and these nuts are all loose. They're all, if you look at them, they're all very new as well. So I suspect these downpipes have been changed. I mean, that surface bloom on there, a little bit of rust you can see on there, that's just rubbed off on my thumb. I think these are probably fairly new, and he's only just loosely fastened them in. Look at that. There's no, I haven't had to encourage that. I've literally loosened that nut off a bit, and it only took one little push and that was loose. And look at that. And this side I haven't even touched yet. So that's, that tells you that these probably were taken off for part of the project the previous guy was going to do, and he just threw them loosely back in place. Fortunately none of those nuts came off in transit, otherwise that would have been something else I had to find. But yeah, there we go. Looks like this side of the job will be a bit easier. I'll have to keep an eye open as well, because the copper gaskets in there, if they haven't been compressed too much, they'll actually be loose and they may drop out. So I'll keep an eye on them, because the other good thing is, if they're fairly new, I don't have to replace them. I can put them back in and they'll be good. However, if the job wasn't being done quite so well, or if it didn't progress that far, I may find that they're pretty old, knackered and well compressed, so it'll be a couple of them I'll be looking for as well. So, there you go, and yeah, you can just about see in there, I think they're actually the old ones. They haven't really been done. So yeah, for safety and everything, for good running, we'll get them out, and some fresh ones go back in there. But that's them downpipes both loose, and there you are. That one falling out, and I don't know actually. No, that might be fairly new. Yeah, they're not the ones I was expecting. These are the compressible ones. You can see a ridge, if I can get the focus on here. You can see a ridge on the edge of there. Let's try that again. Not easy to play on these cameras one-handed. Yeah, there's a little ridge on there anyway, compressor's down, so I think they must be new. It's just that little bit of running I've done, or maybe it's been done before me, that helps to come on, focus. Never mind. Yeah, so they may survive. They may go back in again. Yeah, you can see it hasn't been fastened in properly, because it's actually thicker on one side than the other, which means it hasn't been compressed in properly. So yeah, we'll see what we'll get away with. Yeah, never know. Alright, we'll push on, get all this pulled out. Yeah, so we'll have a look at this one. This one, oh, there you go, that comes out. And this is a bit easier to see. You can see the ridge, and this hasn't been even fastened in properly. Look at it. There's been no compression on that. That's still been loose. Hasn't even been tightened up properly. Strangely, it wasn't this side that looked as if it was leaking when I was running the engine. It was the other side, which probably is because of that partial compression on that ring. Well, there you go. So them gaskets don't need to be replaced when they go back in. Just tightened up properly. That'll make a difference. And yeah, looks okay really. Keeps getting better. I just found that these are actually loose. Yeah, you can actually turn, look at that, turn them with your fingers. Yeah, that one's a bit tighter. I think it's a bit bent because this one I've just brought out, which has been nicely fitted with copper slip, and you might just detect on there's a bend. Whether that's been bent because that's the side it landed on, or whether that's been bent prior to that, and this one also, I don't know. But either ways, I think I'm going to have to give them a bit of a sorting out before they go back together. But that one, I don't know if I can find the hole for it. There it is. You can see when it goes back in. Look at the turn on, look at that. Oh, sorry, you can't see it. Look at the turn on that as it goes in. Yeah, you can see how bent that is. Yeah, so that obviously needs to be straightened up. One of the easy ways to do that is you get it in as far as it'll turn. You get a bit of pipe over the top of it and give it a nudge back over. Same with this one. You can see there's a little bit of a bend on there. You can see how it's moving up and down as it turns. Yeah, so yeah, we'll give them a little bit of a tighten up and straighten out, and they'll be ready to go back together. But they've been nicely copper slipped in. They just haven't been nipped up. The way to nip them up is you actually get a pair of grips down here and give them a tweak. That gets them in. Once they're in and the engine's warmed up a bit, the engine's been running for a while, they'll pretty much tighten into there with the heat, and then you'll just have this end where the nuts come off. But at both ends, when you're putting them together, copper slip, it's critical, especially in there, because you're putting steel into aluminium, and steel and aluminium corrode each other. Yeah, it's called electrolytic reaction, I believe. But yeah, corrosion, terrible. You can see the corrosion on the surface of here. Yeah, there's dust. That's actually corrosion on the aluminium. Yeah, and that's the sort of stuff that happens inside the holes, and you never get bolts out after a while. But put some copper slip in, and it insulates between the two and stops that from happening, or at least reduces it, so you can still get your bolts out without any big problems. Yeah, so another little tip for you. I'm full of these ones. See you in a bit. Another quick thought here: if you can't get a pair of grips into there where it's sat in there, so another idea for it is what you can do is put two nuts together on here, tighten the two nuts with a spanner together, and then a little bit of a socket or something to give it a tweak and nip it in, because it only just needs to be nipped into there. Yeah, and that's another way of doing it if you can't get a hold of there with a pair of grips and get it in properly, because you couldn't even get into there with a pair of grips, could you? There's no access into that. So yeah, a couple of nuts locked together on there, and then tweak it, and that'll be enough just to nudge that home, like. So yeah, there you go, another little tip.